Thinking about labor as a catalyst to empower the nation, wondering if it can pay the bills, pause and think about it with intentional thought and consider where we go from here. Stay tuned and hear what the Director of Labor, Anthony Robert Farquharson, got to say about labor being a catalyst to empower. Join our co-sponsors, Dom Dev Enterprises and Page Investments, and our friends at Something to Think About with Dale Happy Knowles. Post your questions, ask anything that you want of labor today, and we'll endeavor to answer your questions. Subscribe, share, let everybody know that we are live, and we'll be right back.
Something to Think About with Dale Happy Knowles.
Welcome to Something to Think About with Dale Happy Knowles. What we think, we irradiate. What we think, we become. What we radiate, we imagine, and what we... Anyway, all of those different things. Things that's happening today. Internet going crazy, and some other big things happening in the nation. And so what we want to say to you today is welcome. And we're here with the Director of Labor today, and we just apologize for you for his audio not being live at this time because he's just leaving the cabinet sessions because of some things that are happening in the nation right now. And so hopefully he'll be able to navigate through traffic and be able to come online with us shortly. But welcome, Mr. Farquharson. How are you today?
It's good to be here, Brother Dale, but a happy Dale, Lord. I appreciate that invitation. Let me say a warm good afternoon to your listening audience.
Thank you. And so, the director, you formerly is the Director of Labor and Register of Trade Unions in the Ministry of Labor and Immigration. And you're also a past president and general secretary of the mighty Bahamas Communications and Public Officers Union, and Secretary General of the National Congress of Trade Unions in the Bahamas. And we also know that you've had a wealth of tertiary level education, including in this focus of employment law. And you have your LLB. Wow. You know, that's big shots, as I always say to people who can have three letters back to the name. And but most importantly, I know you as my big left-hander.
Yes.
You know, the fella on the mound playing that game where the pitch is going slower than the ball sitting on a golf tee. But yet, you have to strategize and what have you to get these big, overgrown persons to keep the ball in the park. Because everything they hit goes like rockets. But you were the big left-hander who was able to navigate that. And that took a lot of skill, strategy, and so forth. And so I'm sure you apply on all of that to what you do today in your endeavors.
Yes, Dale. Certainly, I was so happy to have someone like you behind me in that shortstop position. Sometimes you play shortstop, sometimes you play second base, sometimes you play the outfield. You are a very all-around infielder. It was people like you behind me that made me look so good when I had an opportunity to play on the mound. And yes, it was my ability to navigate that slow pitch to make sure that the great Batelco Raiders had an opportunity to win some games.
Awesome. So Howard Schultz from Starbucks says that people want to be a part of something larger than themselves. They want to be a part of something they're really proud of and they fight for, sacrifice for, and that they will trust. And if I can add, I would also say that it's something that they have a say in building, developing, or nurturing is what they would want to be a part of. right? So
Certainly.
next to parenting and owning a home, I believe labor is that something that he is talking about. Maybe some other things, but labor have to be one of those things. So we're gonna dive into labor today from a 360 angle point of view and see what does labor really mean to us and how it will empower us if we do it right.
Certainly,
So,
certainly, labor is so important, Dale. In fact, one of the fundamental principles of production is the need to have labor. You have hey, capital, you have land, and obviously one of the criteria in manufacturing everything is labor.
right,
And so labor is critical to the development of any nation.
right. So let's start off by some of the fundamentals and just define what is this thing called labor that you lead that is so special. How would you define
Well,
that?
simple work. There is dignity in work. If we go from a biblical perspective, the old saying is by his sweat, you should earn, eh? And people remember that in principle. Then we look at the real definition of work. There is dignity in work. When a man or a woman has an opportunity for gainful employment, it brings him dignity to know that he is able to take care of himself and his family through the dignity of work. Um, that is so important to national development. We, as a people, came from a slavery background that we had to work in order to eat, work in order to survive. And even the old British colonies, the Roman Empire, their entire principle was based on the concept of man having the ability to work, to earn a living, to take care of himself and his family. And that has reverberated through the entire Western society, even in the Eastern society. You go to places like Europe and China, it's all based on the principle of labor, on the principle of work. Nobody can produce anything in the world unless labor is involved, manpower. With modern technology, so much things are changing rapidly, but yet still, the fundamental of economic development, the fundamentals of productivity is the need to have labor tied to it. Some instances is forced labor, some instances is child labor, but there are all different aspects of labor. And that is why it's so important in the society we live in and in the country we call home that everybody, it is my belief, that everybody should have a fair opportunity to have a job that brings some hope and dignity to that individual.
Yeah, but you mentioned the word dignity about 6 times just
Yes,
now, right? And
yeah.
so that's critical. So are you suggesting by your repetition that we're not in that place?
Um, so I think our forefathers had it down pat, Dale. Our forefathers knew the dignity of work. Our parents and our grandparents knew the dignity of work from going in the field. My grandparents, when they raised us in Snuggle and Auckland, taught us how important it was to work for a living. Today, we have so many young people today, and the young and hard, have lost that very concept of dignity in work. They want the easy life. They want something for nothing. They want to be able to be successful without having to work for success. And I think that's why I focus so much on the dignity of work. There is dignity in a man or woman going to work,
Right.
whether it be 30 hours a week, whether it be 2 days a week, but to know that as a result of his labor, he is giving he is given some form of remuneration. And that remuneration he can use to improve his quality of life and the standard of living. And that's
Right.
why I emphasize so much on work. And I agree with you. I think just the dignity of work has been lost over the years. We look today on the streets of New Providence. We have men and women on the red lights, begging, trying to beg.
Right.
And there is work available. If you come to the Department of Labor, if you go to many employers, they will give you an opportunity to earn, but you're not going to get anything for free. Only in
Right.
life is free salvation. And I believe that because Jesus paid it all, he already done paid the price. And so we have to, as a people, come to that understanding and appreciate just the concept of dignity and work.
Yeah. But even the salvation, you still have to make the choice. So you
Right,
still have to do
exactly.
something, right? But when I said that, next to parenting and owning a home, that align also biblically because I mean the first thing with parenting was when God created man. And
Yeah,
then if you use that parallel, and then the home is when he gave him Eden and told
you're
him,
right.
to
Yeah, the
nurture it
garden.
and so forth. So the
Right.
garden, and then, the next thing, his first commandment to man was to work.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
before he even gave him a woman. But anyway, that's
Exactly.
sidetrack conversation. Some people get mad if I say that. But so what is the purpose of this labor then? You touched on it a little bit, but just elaborate it so people get a good concept as to why. Because I believe that yes, there are a bunch of young youth on the side of the road and older persons and so forth who not productive, but it mightn't necessarily be because they don't have something, but it might be because they haven't seen an example of good work.
Yeah,
So what's the purpose?
that's part of it too. Our mentors, eh? I was fortunate enough, Dale, to have a father and a mother who worked. They taught us how important it is to work, eh? My dad was a cab driver. He had to leave home many mornings early, return late at
Right.
night. My mother worked for the public service. I'm blessed to have my parents had eight children. They taught us all how important it is to work, and not only to work, but to prepare for work,
Right.
prepare for the labor market, go to school, get an education, learn what you can, um, be able to put yourself in a position that when an opportunity comes for gainful employment, you take advantage of the opportunity. And to work in itself, Dale, is the ability to offer your service. The law of contract states that to get employment, there has to be, you have to follow the simple rules. There is an offer of employment, there is an acceptance of employment, there is consideration, which is the pay, and there is an
Okay.
intent to create legal relationship. Eh? Those are the four principles of the law of contract. There is an offer. I
Right.
want you to be a clerk in the store. There's an acceptance. I accept this job. There is consideration. I will pay you $300 a week. And there is a intent to create a legal binding an employer and employee relationship. That forms a contract of employment. And that's the fundamentals of labor. The contract of employment is the fundamental basis for any labor. And a contract can be in many forms. It can be verbal, could be written, could be part verbal or part written. All constitutes a contract of employment. And the concept of labor and work is built on the contract of employment.
Right. Right. Purpose. So you now are the director of labor, the big cheese, and your CTO of. So what does those roles imply or entail?
Well,
What's expected of somebody with those positions?
the director of labor has multiple duties or responsibilities. Firstly, I'm responsible for the day-to-day operations of the Department of Labor. And the Department of Labor has 157 employees that I'm responsible for. Our job breaks down into providing services for the citizens and residents of the Bahamas. We provide multiple services. We have offices in New Providence, Grand Bahama, Bimini, Abaco, Lutra, Exoma, and Andros. And we provide a number of services. First service we provide is the public employment services service. Our job is to match job seekers with
Okay.
employers with vacant position. That's the first option. Our second option in the Department of Labor is the Industrial Relations Unit. That is the part of the Department of Labor. Whenever there is a breakdown in a relationship between the employer and the employee, our
Right.
department is responsible for mediating and resolving that dispute. Then we have our Occupational Safety and Health Unit. That is responsibility for the monitoring and enforcement of all of the statute laws of the Bahamas to make sure the Minimum Wage Act is adhered to make sure the Health and Safety Act is adhered to, the Employment Act and Industrial Relations Act is adhered to. Then we have the legal and the regulatory services. We're responsible for the managing and the regulation of all of the trade unions in the Bahamas, and the compliance. And those are the four functions that we provide to people. We provide some additional functions. For instance, right, the Department of Labor is responsible for working with the Department of Immigration to ensure there are no trafficking in persons. People use have to be responsible for child labor, responsible for international relations with the Inter-American Development Bank, the International Labor Organization, the Organization of American States. Then we also have the responsibility of the regulation of trade unions, spend time to have trade union elections and the supervision of elections and the Constitution. And then in addition to that, we offer advice to the Minister of Labor, who has
Right.
ultimate responsibility. And finally, and one of the most important aspects of it, Section 86 of the Industrial Relations Act dictates that whenever a foreigner requires a work permit in our country, it is the duty of the responsibility of labor to make sure that there are no available and qualified Bahamians. Because if there is an available and a qualified Bahamians, the Department of Labor will not approve that application. And so
Right.
we have a cadre of responsibilities to ensure that the Bahamian people are considered for labor employment opportunities here in our beautiful Bahama land.
And that's why they call you away on the spur of the moment to go into some high places and hold up my show. But it is all for love. So when we
Certainly.
look at all of that, then, and we know that Labor Day is fast approaching. So if we put that in
Yes.
context now, that when we look at, for example, I was born in 1963, which is the year of partial internal rule.
Right.
So what was the labor, I don't say attitude, the labor complement
Oh
back
man.
then? Yeah.
Back in
What was
1960,
it
let's
like?
not
Yeah.
forget. I'm gonna tell you what it is. In 1962, that is the first year we had universal suffrage in the Bahamas, where um, the Bahamian female, for the first time in 1962, was allowed to vote. At
Right.
that time, the government of the Bahamas was being ruled by what we call the white oligarchy. We
Right.
had a minority white group of Bahamians, comprising about 15% at that time, controlled the political and economic power of the remainder of the bloc at about 85%. So in
Right.
1963, on the year you born, we were in a transition period. Between 1962 and 1967, the Bahamas was in a transition period, and it was labor. It was the power of labor that changed the Bahamas on January 10th, 1967, when all of us know the election resulted in the 1818 tie.
Right.
The PLP, headed by the late Lyndon Pinland, had 18 seats. The UBP, headed by the late Roland Simmons, had 18 seats. There were one independent candidate, Sir Alvin Brennan, and one Labour candidate, the late Sir Randall Fox, in which
Right.
we happen to name and honor Labour Day in his honor. It was that decision made by the late Sir Randall Fox that changed our course of our history in this country. And sitting down with Sir Randall Dale, I love to tell the story. Sir Randall said, Mr. Farquharson, so on the night of January 10th, the late Sir Roland Simmons came to his house. And Sir Roland Simmons wrote, he take on his checkbook, the Dale, and he signed his name on the bottom of the check. And he
Right.
told Sir Randall, you put in the amount, you fill it out.
Wow.
Anything that Sir Randall wanted, he had the option. You know what Sir Randall did? As a labor representative, he chose to stand by the labor workers. The workers sent him there to represent them. And he decided that day in his house on JFK Drive that he will stand with the people, the working people of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. He joined the Progressive Liberal Party, and Sir Lyndon Pinland became the first black premier in the history of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. That changed the direction our country was heading in.
Right.
And,
Right.
and that itself speaks to the volume that Labour played in the development of our country. Let me tell you something else, Dale. That same Sir Randall Fox, Sir Randall Fox was the first member of Parliament that stood in Parliament and called for the independence of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Not Sir Lyndon Pinland,
Right.
not A.D. Hanna. It was Sir Randall Fox that led the charge for an independent Bahamas, which became a reality on July
Right.
10th, 1973. So
Right.
that's
Right.
that's what Labour meant to this country. It was Sir Randall Fox who became the first Minister of Labour in the PLP government that drafted the Industrial Relations Act and the Fair Labour Standards Act, which formed the foundation of the relation between the social partners and provided a statutory relief for the working people of this country.
Right.
So you see the role that Labour has played in general and Sir Randall Fox in particular to the growth and development of our nation.
Yeah. And so back then it was very, should I say, fiery I would say.
Oh yeah, especially.
How labor was done, and you had the labor union and so forth that he led also, and then you have persons like
Oh
Samuel
yes. Oh
Stubbs,
man.
who he was a
Sam
guest on
Lee.
the show already. Rest in peace. And I always say majority rule is the greatest of the major milestones that we have, but we're not going to debate that today. But the when we look at that whole thing, when we go through from majority rule up to independence, and shortly after there was a wealth of things happening, and labor had a major play in all of
Oh
that.
yes. Yes,
Do
certainly.
we still see today that be the case, where labor is driving a lot of change?
Still, as a trade unionist for almost 40 years, I have not. No, let me put it like this. Over the past couple of years, I have not been pleased with the role that the labor has played in national development.
Okay.
In recent months, however, I am so pleased to know that the labor movement is now beginning to,
Pick
I
back
want
up.
to say, to rebound, to rebound and show their prominence. In August of 2021, the PLP, who was in opposition, then signed a memorandum of understanding with the Joint Labor Movement. That's a Commonwealth of the Bahamas Trade
Right.
Union Congress, headed by O.B. Ferguson, and the National Congress of Trade Unions, who at that time was headed by Bernard Evans. And they signed a joint memorandum of understanding which underscored and put back, rebuild trust and confidence that the labor movement and the prominence it should have in our country. Prior to September 16, there was very little or no communication between the
Right.
social partners and the government. The
Okay.
country cannot develop if
Right.
there is not a relationship between labor and capital. We cannot develop.
Yeah.
Government
So.
represents a side of capital. The employers represent a side of capital. And so when trust and relationship is built, we now begin to see the importance of labor and the importance
Right.
that labor is now playing. As a result of that newfound relationship,
Yes. And so
the
that is
Bahamas
good that the
into
door is now open. Go ahead.
bigger prospects in in the way forward. On December 6th, as a result of this newfound relationship, on December 6th, 2021, the governor of Bahamas, in conjunction with the National Labor Organization and the social partners, signed what we call a memorandum with the International Labor, the Bahamas Decent Work Country Program.
Right.
And what that
Okay.
Decent Work Country Program did there, it set out the aspirations of the social partners and the government of the Bahamas on what the International Labor Organization can do um,
Right.
to facilitate growth and development in our country. There were three pillars in that Decent Work Country Program. One was job creation and training. Two was social dialogue. And three was governance. Those three pillars um, is what going to propel the Bahamas and the relationship labor will play in the development of Bahamas over the next 5 years. It's a remarkable document. It's available on the Department of Labor's website to the public. It's on the International Labor's website, and we're the first country in the English-speaking Caribbean to facilitate such a program. We're really excited about it, Dale. It sets out goals and aspirations. Talk about a national apprenticeship program. It talks about amalgamating all the training efforts in the country. It talks about training. It talks about education. It talks about creating minimum wage and a livable wage. It speaks
Right.
about inspections. It speaks about modernizing our court system, modernizing our trade dispute system. It's a remarkable document. I want to invite your listeners to go on to the Department of Labor's face page or go on International Labor and or even Google it. It's
Right.
fascinating, reading. And it really puts labor back to those days of the 1960s and the 1970s there.
That's good because I'll fast forward to a couple of questions that I had there, and because I was getting concerned that labor was just disappearing, and labor was making labor an industry versus uh, a service to the people,
Right.
But so when we look at it though, there's one aspect of it that I'm not pleased with, and that is we came to the point where we grew to the point where you can associate with whichever union you wish to be, but it seems like some persons are still not being recognized, or I don't want to deal with something that is live, but it's not happening
Yeah,
in the
it's
right
not.
way.
The
Is that
reality is it's
something for
not.
your office, or that somebody else have to deal with stuff like that?
It's not. One of the aspects of ILO convention, and I'm sorry, Convention 87 is the freedom to associate.
Right.
Um, um, ILO 98, the Article 26 of the Constitution of our country gives every citizen the right to join a trade union of their choice and to have that trade union negotiate on their behalf. The Industrial Relations Act, in which this is the statute that governs the relationship between employers, gives every independent trade union, anybody can join an independent trade union as they wish.
Right.
What has happened, Dale, over the years, because, and I can say this with a shut up, because the leadership in the trade union movement has become so weak, in my opinion, has become so weak over the years. Um, they tend to gravitate to the political directorate, which it shouldn't be. They tend to look for their self-interest. Back in the days with the Keith Archers and the Charlie Baines and the William Bridgewater and the Bartolomeo Bastian and Leroy Buchanan, those men and women, it was service above self, eh? It was look out for your fellow co-workers first. It was not about them. And I think we have lost that in the trade union movement. We need to rebuild these leaders they need to understand the trade union movement is not about you or find out how much you can make as a union leader or how much you can get personally. It's about serving the people you represent. And I think we have lost some of that in the trade union movement.
Yeah, and just to add to your story there, I could vividly remember being in one of those BTC trucks at baseball practice with Buddy Murray Jr. Sr. And the call came with him and Sonny Jiggy Haven, and they were having a dispute at Ponciana.
Yep.
And the call came, and he packed up everybody on the team and about tell them you got to go home and stuff. And he threw myself and Buddy Murray Jr. and a couple other people in the back of that van. You know, you used to have that little, look like a
Yep. Yeah, the
van
truck.
car
Yep.
type thing.
Yeah.
With
Uh-huh.
all that equipment in the back there, and his baseball equipment, and also little children in the back there, and we gone to Ponciana. And all I could hear is words that I never heard before, good.
Yeah.
And some things happening there, and I was like, this is like World War X.
Yeah.
You know, but you always stand on the ground and
Yeah. Yeah.
keep
You stand
artists and the
because
rest of them. Yeah.
it was one for all and all for one. If you touch one, you have to touch all today. That's lost. And it's the fault, I think, mostly of the failure to effectively communicate and to educate and inform your members. You cannot get the support of your membership if you do not tell them what the issues are, explain to them in detail what the issues are, get their buy-in, and then go to war.
Yeah. So say that again. Effective to communicate
Effective
and
to
what's the other one?
communication, educate, and
Educate.
inform. You
Wow.
cannot expect the men and women today to go and, like you said, jump in the back of a vehicle, don't know where you're going, but just go unless they are informed.
Right.
Eh? And so much times the leaders in general, but the trade union leaders in particular, has failed to educate and inform its members.
Right. Wow. Well, Labor Day is coming, and hopefully, with those signatures that have happened under this administration, that things will change in a big way. But there's some
Certainly.
sip coming out of the UK. Some friends of mine who either wake up there or in school is telling me there's some sip that, and you know, we like to follow what Massa say or the ones in the United States say, but hopefully it doesn't come here. But there's some sip suggesting that there's a bill being constructed that might put some restrictions on unions and or facilitate the opting out. This coming. Are you familiar with any of that? You still there, Aki? Sound like he dropped off a little bit. But yeah, that's some of the sip that we're hearing coming out of the UK. But we won't worry about that too much. And so what we'll do is at this point we will go to a break, and hopefully when we come back, Brother Farquharson, Anthony Robert Farquharson, Director of Labor, will be back with us. You've been listening to Something to Think About with Dale Happy Knowles. We'll be right back.
Sammy's Chicken. There's nothing like it.
Behind every scoop, lick, and savor is a smile and memory being made or reminisce. Whether you're at work, out with family on a Sunday, or have friends visiting, flavor will meet expectations in our 32-ounce container for only $10 if you're having a special event as well. Exotic flavors ranging from sour sop to Guinness is definitely worthwhile.
Welcome back to Something to Think About with Dale Happy Knowles. We're here this
Yeah,
evening with Anthony Robert Farquharson, speaking about labor being the catalyst for empowerment. Welcome back, Aki. How you doing?
Yeah, welcome back, Gail. I'm actually arrived home. I click on my camera just to make sure I can see your face. And so I'm so happy again to join you and your audience.
Great, awesome. Maybe I don't know if you could adjust it a little bit so it could go more towards your face than right up. So yeah, so
Okay.
you don't right, because people want to see you. You know, you the big left-hander.
Uh,
Yeah,
yeah,
had to get
I
it going.
certainly remember those days.
Yes, yes. So before we broke up, then one more question on that line would be: is do we understand the value of labor as a nation to our bottom line?
No, I really don't think we do. I don't think we as a people understand the value, the true value of labor to our country, eh? Um, and I'm talking about all facets of our society.
Yeah.
People have not respected first aid labor, the value of labor, and what labor brings to the table. That's the first aspect of it. The labor hate leaders, I think, themselves in today's society do not understand and appreciate the power of labor
Right.
and the power that labor would have on all aspects of society. We have about a little over 400,000 people in our country today.
Right.
The labor force as of last year, it was estimated about 240,000 people. So you're talking about a large segment of men and women who are a part of the labor force, and that's the formal labor force. That's not the informal economy. We have so many people in the informal economy that work who are not registered. And then finally, the financial power, the combined financial power of labor. Can you imagine if the working people could get together in our society today and pool their financial resources, the kind of economic strength we should have? Just think about it. The fact that we have the insurance industry, the financial services industry, the tourism hospitality industry, not owned majority by Bahamians.
Right.
If we could get 240,000 people together, pool their financial resources, we could do so much wonderful things in our country today.
Right. Right. And that's awesome. And so when we look at this in terms of addressing the labor power, empowering ourselves and stuff like that, we believe the answer is found in a trainer of mine, John James R. Lucas, who was recognized as an authority in leadership development and cultural design, right? And he makes the statement that the critical importance of shared vision, mission, values, and behaviors, right? And talking to those, he said, the average or mediocre leaders ignore the importance of these cultural drivers or dismisses them as trivial, soft, or touchy-feely, right? And he says, great leaders understand that there is no greater source of power for building a passionate, high-performance organization, and they drain these drivers of every ounce of potential. I know that's big.
Powerful. That's
Mission,
powerful.
vision, mission, values, and behaviors. And so, with those as the engine, how valuable as the leader is knowing the value of these assets for you to be effective?
The failure of leadership, I think, is one of the greatest weaknesses in our society today, in all facets of our community. Failure leadership in our political leaders, in our civil leaders, in our religious leaders, in our labor leaders. Leaders today should be such that they inspire their followers to follow them.
Right.
If you don't have a vision and a mission and a purpose and have the ability to effectively communicate that vision, that mission, and that purpose to your followers, and finally, to create successorships in your leadership ability, then I think you have failed as a leader. And in the trade union movement, we have many failed leaders. In political, we have failed leaders all the time. And so we have to find a mechanism in our country to identify these weaknesses and work to correct the weaknesses to inspire a new generation of Bahamians. I would have been inspired in my early career in BTC by men and women like Keith Archer and Idina Burrows and
Right.
people like Joe Brown. Joe Brown, they were novices, but you inspired because they had a vision on where they wanted to go. And I wanted to be like them. I wanted to be a Buddy Murray. Buddy Murray, he was a leadership in his work. He was a leadership in the sports community. He had the ability to lead. And young people like you and I, we without just by watching them and mentoring them, we wanted to be like them. I think we have lost some of that.
In mentioning Buddy Murray, I'm saying again, people don't realize through his whole career, not one day, other than maybe the day then afterwards when he got sick, when he retired and everything, that he missed taking his wife to lunch. Or having lunch with his wife. So, we got that imagery also as family, from people like him. It's huge, critical what was going on.
But it's men, again, what helped shape me as an individual, It's men what shaped me when I look, despite their many faults, because all of them had faults, But like you said, we knew for a fact that come hell or high water, he was a family man. He was dedicated to taking his wife to lunch. Right. He said, why can't we do that?
Right. Yeah. So when we look at things now, we go way back. And over a 20-year period, there was a time there when I think I was a thorn in your side, and even the Shane Gibson, your other predecessor before you, in terms of president, in raising the lid, so that pushing pressure on you that you could change the way the unions affect employees and government affect employees, so that it could be more than just what is considered to be the traditional union leadership. And one of the things I fought for was this idea of the registry, where not just that we register all employees and so, but so people would know who has what skills, what businesses out there where consultancies would have these skills, and then when there's a foreign person come in, for example, or even a Bahamian company who want to source people from outside. Because, in BTC at the time, or Patalco as we used to call it, there was a policy that you had to choose internally before you went externally, unless there was a certain divide in the skills and what have you that was being offered. And I felt that we should endorse that in a program. And so I know you've been working on a skills bank, I can call it that. I don't know what's the formal name. where are we with that? Are we any closer to that being registered and up and running so that if the Bahamas or whatever come in and say, boom, and you could say Dom Dev Enterprises or Fakico or Shane B, whatever, is available to do these type of things. You don't need to go and get somebody external to bring it in.
Dale, I'm so happy to report, proud in fact, that the Department of Labor has a fully functional, digitized national skills bank.
Wow.
We, in conjunction with the Inter-American Development Bank, International Labor Organization, has the ability right now, from any place in the world, any Bahamian citizen can register their qualifications, their resume online, electronically. We have the ability to, with a push of a button, identify how many skilled carpenters, how many engineers, how many nurses are available. We have the ability to decipher whether they are male and female, their age group, their qualifications, and we're able to match electronically their skills with a job description that an employer wants. Just today, Dale, I turned on a major employer because the major employer says they want to bring in a foreigner to run a restaurant. And by pushing a few buttons, I was able to send them 27 qualified, unemployment, Bahamian managers with more than 10 years experience in running a restaurant.
That's great.
So
awesome.
I was able, without a doubt, to say, I will not approve that. I can't tell you to hire.
Right.
But I tell you, that foreigner ain't coming to the Bahamas to be a restaurant manager in the Bahamas.
Right. And that's good because it helps the people who may not know how to really market themselves well to have an avenue and access to employers and Bahamian and foreigners alike. You know?
Yeah.
And
each day we want our skills bank to go because you can register, even if you are employed, you can register our skills bank, and an opportunity may come up that we send to you. You may be interested.
Right. Right. That's
so we want to encourage that. Yeah.
I got about 6 people right now. I'm thinking off the top of my head who gonna be logging on either tonight when we come off the show.
www.jobseekers.bahamas.bs.
Yeah,
www. Yes, sir. Oh, I see it right there. Yes,
yeah.
Yes.
You're on the ball there, you know.
Exactly. Sharp was the top.
Yeah. You know, that's how that's how leaders do. You know, leaders always circulate themselves with people who sharper than them. You know. So, yeah. Cool.
Basically, and to say, let me give an example. This happened probably in 2014. I had a gentleman who came to the Department of Labor when it was in the Clansman bill, and he was applying for 2 non-Bahamians. He had a mosquito spraying company, and he wanted to advertise for 2 non-Bahamians to work in the evening to spray mosquitoes, to spray the killing the mosquitoes. And I was trying to figure out why they want 2 foreigners to do this. I said, because we have Bahamians who's willing to work for $250 a week to do this. He says that he tried Bahamians and they don't want work. He said, I try to find a job myself in my profession, but I can't find a job in the Bahamas. And I said, so have you registered with us? He says, no. I said, well, what do you do? The guy used to work on Wall Street, Dale? He's a qualified CPA, public financial analyst, all kind of letters behind his name. And he's in the Bahamas operating a mosquito spraying business because when there was the big, when the bubble burst, the firm he worked for closed down. And I said, I said, how you registered? See, I didn't know to register. They bring in a bunch of foreigners. I said, what do you do? And the guy told me his resume, and I had, ironically, in front of me, an application for a foreign bank to bring in a foreigner. I said, but you match this.
Right.
And there, he registered, and he had that job in the space. He had a job interview in the space of a week, and he was hired. And his starting salary was $130,000 a year. So he moved from operating a small mosquito spraying business to going back in the finance, all because he failed to register at that time.
Right.
The registry that time was manually registered, so you had to
Right.
physically go to a problem. You don't have to do that anymore. You can register 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Right. Yeah. So when we look at this registry, though, before we leave off of that, this will that also register companies in terms of
Yes, exactly. Companies.
yeah.
So we have a number of, we call them our partners now, right? So our
Okay.
partners can go on our website as a company, and whenever they have vacancies, they upload their vacancies, the job description of the vacancies, and then that's how we use to match the job seekers with the vacancies
Right.
electronically. So Bahama, for instance, is looking for an executive housekeeper. Eh? We are able to identify all of the executive housekeepers in our database, link them to that advertisement, and they
Right.
themselves could go and apply for the job.
Right. Right. Awesome stuff. Awesome. Awesome. So when we look at this picture, then with this tool that you have and all of the other skills that you all have available to you and assets, what percentage of the jobs today would we say the expats have that Bahamians could fill?
Um,
Mind you,
okay, let me
I'm
see
not against
that.
expats now. Yeah.
Okay, let me tell you, experts. See, there are two levels I want to look at. First and foremost,
Okay.
there are a significant amount of labor certificates that we have to approve for gardeners and handymen and housekeepers and maids and babysitters and caregivers, because don't care how we advertise those vacancies, hardly, if any, Bahamian apply to fill those vacancies. So we have very different choice to approve those, right? And that takes up a large percent. We issue about 30,000 work permits per year.
I
A
believe it's a
large amount
cultural
of
thing, though. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. That's a cultural thing, eh? So that's what we can do with that. And then there is the middle class, where we have very few unemployed Bahamians in this industry. A pharmacist. If you're a qualified pharmacist, you can get a job in this country. If you're a qualified nurse, you're a qualified engineer, a qualified land surveyor, you will have a job available to you. Don't care what. And then there are those high-end jobs where many foreign companies try to find creative ways to quote unquote keep Bahamians out. And we have
Right.
to be more vigilant every day. Typical example, the financial services sector.
Okay.
You want an investment banker, and they say we want somebody with a degree in financial banking with 10 years experience and some form of management in the past 5 years. We have scores and scores of Bahamians who could fill that. But when you look for that an ad, you must be able to speak French, Japanese, Spanish, German, Creole. And so we have to be very careful in approving those, because you have to justify that to me now.
Right.
Why would you need to speak 6 and 7 languages? And you have to justify that. So before
Right.
time, the move of foot was to, okay, approve this, approve this. No. Tell me what this person could be doing speaking Japanese. Why you need this person to speak Japanese? We have
Right.
to find out who else in your company speak Japanese. Who else speak Portuguese? Maybe you hire this Bahamian and you got somebody else to translate. You don't need a foreigner. So those are some of the things what we have to do now to be more vigilant in ensuring that Bahamians have a fair opportunity to fill those jobs.
And I could see you right now because just how when that fella hit the ball off the fence and you come back fighting with the next
Yeah,
pitch, I could see that's just how they throw something at you and then you go like, boy, anyway. So
exactly. Yeah,
right, I know, and it's a serious thing. You know, a lot of people just following, riding the wave and not putting up obstacles, putting up a fight for what they believe in. And so when we look at this now, where do we have gaps today?
skills. Oh man, listen. Dale, and this is one of the new trusts of the Department of Labor. Eh?
Okay.
We have to bring in foreign welders in this country and pay them 25, 30, $35 an hour to weld.
For how many hours a
AC
day?
technicians. I'm talking, they work at 40 hours a day. I think over 40 hours overtime.
Holy smoke.
We have very few qualified and certified. Many people could go and weld, but you need to be able to go to the shipyard in Grand Bahama
Fine.
and be certified, because those insurance companies are not gonna come to the shipyard and you have certified. They have to cover those things.
Right.
We have AC technicians, high AC technicians there. We have to bring in Mexicans to do this because um, many of these AC units have warranties and certain guarantees. So you
Right.
can't have anybody without certification to work on these high end electricians, plumbers. We need qualified, trained Bahamians, certified Bahamians. So the Department of Labor, in conjunction with the Ministry of Education and BTVI, has already embarked on a certification program where we are able to certify Bahamians to NCCER training online
Right.
and
Right.
get them a certification in 4 different stages. That
Awesome.
program would have started in Eleuthera, Exuma, already, and in New Providence. We moving to Grand Bahama because we want to be able to deny those labor certificates and work permits in the very near future. It costs Bahamians to be in a position to fill these vacancies. And the only way we can do that is we prepare now. We have to get our education system to be transformed and to begin to put dignity in that type of work.
Right.
We have to
Right.
begin to identify from as early as grade 8 and grade 9 to prepare the young people to fill these high end jobs. We need to make $35 an hour.
No. So
I mean,
that
that's what I mean.
and I used to have a plumber friend, and he was a master plumber, and he used to come to me and around about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. He already finished working for the day, and he
Yeah,
used to tell me, when I was an executive at BTC, he was making twice or three
yeah,
times as much as what I was making,
that's
right?
reality.
You know, and it's a Bahamian, right?
Yeah, I
But
mean, we have today. We had just a company today came to us and said, we need skilled carpenters and skilled masons to go to work in Exuma and work in Abaco.
right,
And we got people don't want to leave New Providence to go to Abaco to make $25 an hour,
right, right. Yeah,
plus
but they need some
three
early
meals a
help.
day,
Yeah,
but they're unemployed
right.
today. But they don't want to move to Abaco to do this type of work. So it's the mentality we need to change.
Yeah, that's a yeah. Okay, so we need to work on that attitude,
Right.
mentality, and probably discipline mixed up in there. So tell me, I back up into this thing called the Skills Development Act of 1998. Is that an active act, or that's
No, it's not.
something that was passed and never came to?
No, it's not. It's not active. It should be. The you remember I told you about the Bahamas Decent Way Country Program.
Yeah.
The country programs calls for and some amendments to the Act and calls for an amendment to the National Apprenticeship Act. The National
Okay.
Apprenticeship Act that exists today is a 1966 Act.
Right.
We've already drafted a 2020 Act to amend to establish a National Apprenticeship Program.
Right.
And the National Apprenticeship Program is going to be based on the principle that we want to identify in another 6 to 12 months, 5 to 8,000 Bahamians in certain sectors of the economy: the financial services sector, the tourism sector, the medical and allied worker sector, the construction sector, and the marine sector, the maritime sector, and the ITC sector. And we want to be able to prepare these men and women for the job market by entering them into a 1 year national apprenticeship program where we're going to certify them. We can have them be in the classroom for 80% of the time, be on the field for 20% of the time, give them certification, and have the government pay a portion of their salary. The employer pays a portion of their salary. And hopefully in another 12 years, they will have both experience and certification in those specialized areas where they'll be able to be better prepared to enter into the labor market.
Right.
The maritime sector in particularly there are thousands and thousands of jobs available on cruise ships and oil tankers in the shipping industry where
Right.
Bahamians are not taking advantage of. So that's going to be a major thrust of this national apprenticeship program.
Right. And that's great stuff there. So when we look at all of that now, and we have you all obviously have been doing your homework and putting the building blocks in place in order to cause these things to happen. But now to make it happen, the people need to do their piece. But so let's
Exactly.
assume that the people do their piece, that the people being the citizens and the business places do their role. What would be the social, economic, and quality of life impact if we
Okay.
were to be able to fill these positions that humans are capable of filling?
Let's first look at the economic impact.
Okay.
Those non-Bahamians who come to the Bahamas and be here for 5, 10, 12 years, making between $25 an hour to perform this job. When Bahamians take those jobs now, that means that that money will remain in our economy.
Right.
That
Okay.
monies that are being paid to those foreigners, that monies that are being paid to those foreigners, will stay in our economy. That means more people in our country, um, what is that? Or our country who are not contributing to national insurance now, they will be hired. That means the
Right.
national
Okay.
insurance fund will be positive impact.
Right.
Then because more job opportunities could be available, that means more VAT could be paid. And all that's the economic impact. Let's look at the social impact. These same people who are unemployed, who are burdened on the Department of Social Services, getting food vouchers and
Right.
rent assistance, they now can have more money available to them where they can pay their own way in taxes, more
Right.
money in social services to provide services for those who really need it. Less stress on the home, the family life, because the male and the female are probably working. The stress
Right.
level in the home significantly reduces. Then let's look at the psychological impact. Um, when there is less stress, there is more peace of life. The quality of life goes up. The standard of living goes up. And so instead of paying a handyman $210 a week now, you making money, you can pay the handyman $250, $300 a week. A Bahamian may decide to take that job. So those
Right.
are just three aspects that it
That's
will
right.
transform how we live in our country.
Cool. And so when we do that, then so what does the people and the businesses and academia need to do in order to help get us to be empowered to be able to fill those positions and collect the $30 or so an hour jobs and stuff like that?
We have to better plan, Dale. We have to better plan, the I should say it, okay. There is a move afoot right now. In fact,
Okay.
and I can say that difficult thing. I was just asked recently to provide a list of skills that the Bahamians do not have that we issue work permits for to the government. The
Right.
government is now compiling that list and creating to expand the technical training aspects of our system, where they create special technical schools to give Bahamians free training and
Right.
certification in these areas where foreigners are working. The University of the Bahamas then has to transform their system to
Right.
make sure that those foreign languages that are required by the high-end jobs are available to Bahamians and make it mandatory from the school system. Uh, we now need to learn, because of our relationship with China, Mandarin. How many high schools do they teach Chinese? We have to transform that, The Portuguese, the financial services sector is now leaning toward South America. The majority of those people speak not only Spanish, but Portuguese. Is
Right.
Portuguese being taught in our schools? No. So that's where the curriculum has to change. That's on that side, Why can't we deal from grade 7 and grade 8, depending on certain tests, say to our young men and our young women, let's start learning skilled carpentry and give them a certification by grade 10, a piece of paper which says they are certified to do this particular skills.
Right.
And that's how we have to transform our entire nation, think about this. At age 60, at age 60, at age 65, many persons today believe you should retire.
Right.
But men and women today are living longer.
Right.
When you retire at age 60, like in most government ministries and departments, eh, you begin to collect a pension from national insurance. You begin to, and then you stop making NIB contributions. If we are flexible on the retirement, mandatory retirement age, that means you put more into national insurance. You
Right.
take less of the national insurance. The national insurance fund then builds. And you could turn around and then try to reinvest those funds in the remote family islands. Let's create an avenue in Auckland where we could create a cascarilla bark factory. We don't have to ship the cascarilla bark to Europe no more to be
Right.
manufactured. We can bring the plant to the Bahamas. And these are kind of thinking we have to do to transform our economy.
Yeah. And just today, I was listening to one of those, those international gurus who get up on these podcasts and have these talks and stuff. And one of the gentlemen was saying that it's exactly what you're talking about in terms of killing the workforce at 60 and 65. He said most people don't become true leaders, most effective true leaders until they're about 50, 55. And then they become wise or wisdom givers when they become about 60, 65. But at that point, we already throw them out of the
Yeah,
workforce, and
we
so they're not
retire
be
them.
benefiting whatever else, and not we really losing out on that resource, that or that asset to be available to everybody. And so
Certainly.
I'm glad to hear what you're saying, and so forth, and that's great. So is there any other digital services that
Yes.
labor is bringing to the
The,
table?
I'm going to tell you one of the other things we have done. The Department of Labor, in conjunction with the Inter-American Development Bank, has partnered with a San Francisco-based company called the Avastat Foundation in the
Okay.
government's quest to digitize the public service. The Inter-American Development has granted a loan to offer, listen to this, Dale, free certification in the digital space for Bahamians,
Wow.
where on the entrepreneurship side as well as on the employee side, where they train and certify Bahamians to work in the digital space. For prime
Right.
example, they just sent to the Department of Labor today for to us begin qualified, identified, trained Bahamians for cohort 7 and 8. And that means each cohort has 60 people. So they're now
Okay.
asking us for 120 people to train over a 6-month period and get certification where they're able to operate, work, and generate income in the digital space. Prime example, eh? And this is a real true success story there. We have a young businessman runs a restaurant in New Providence. He has a difficulty with identifying product, fish and conch,
Right.
and other seafood products for his business. So he was trained in this entrepreneurship, right? So he electronically and digitally hooked up with a young man in Crooked Island and Auckland who's providing him with a product.
Right.
His menu and marketing strategy is being done by somebody in Eleuthera
Right.
electronically. So through the same training, we have created 3 business opportunities for 3 different Bahamians on 3 different islands, and
Right.
all of them making hay money.
Right.
That's what this program has done. And
Right.
so, if you're interested in
yeah.
this program, reach out to our Department of Labor officers, and we can have you hooked up and trained. And it's
And
free.
I'm glad you say that, because the Bahamas is an archipelago, but we've been digitally connected across all of those islands for
Exactly.
decades, and I'm glad to hear that we're now starting to benefit from these things, because why
And Dale, you played a role in that. But for you
yeah.
and your role as an executive of BTC, you were intricately involved in connecting the Bahamas undersea fiber network, which has been
Yeah.
used today to generate that.
Yeah, we get there. So, but before we leave that out, telecoms, in the 80s, I attended, I think we all used to attend these USTTI conferences. I forget what it stands for in total, but part of it is Telecommunication United States government. It was a partnership between the I think the United States government and the Caribbean governments. to
Right.
to upskill persons in telecommunications. But one of the courses I was on was one to deal with sustainability. One of the first classes that I went to when I was transferred into engineering. And the study that we referenced, or what was pulled out in reference when I realized I was from the Bahamas, one of them said that we needed 3 million people in our economy for it to be sustainable. So we have 400,000 persons, and the labor force at its peak is like how many?
240,000 today.
240,000. So we're talking about at least a factor of plenty tens to get to that 3 million. And so when we look at that and all of the goodies that you put on the table today, it's encouraging to sound like we are almost on the right track. And so there's the foreign component though, which will make up the difference. And where are we in terms of getting people to understand that we're not anti-foreign, but you have to be more of a special skilled activity, competence for lack, in order not competing with the average person. Let's put it
Right.
because we're a developing nation.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, Nidia, you're quite correct. Whenever we issue work permits, those 30,000 we issue, that I can't tell you the exact percentage, but a significant amount of those are for people, as you described, high-end, specialized, specially skilled. One of the requirements we have is what we call the National Understudy Program. If you are specialized, you come to the Bahamas, we welcome you. We want to open our arms to you, but you have to be willing to commit to knowledge transfer. So part of the things is identifying a Bahamian, 1 or 2 Bahamian understudies to identify who's going to succeed you, and then implement a training sustained program, which the Department of Labor will have to monitor to know that within 4 or 5 years, we now have 2, 3 Bahamians who are now qualified and able to fill that role. And that in itself is what it's going to be a catalyst for the success for what you're speaking about.
Yeah. And you say you're doing all this with 127 people?
152 people. 152. And we need more. Yeah.
Yeah, I like imagine you need more for all the stuff that you're doing and stuff like that. Yeah. Cool. And so when we look at this and we talk about this fortified labor force driving our economy, then it sounds to me that you all have a vision already. You have your mission, you have your values, and there's some behaviors that need to be tidied up. It sounds like you only have that last leg in order to potentiate this boost. So I believe that we have $100 billion economy. And people get crazy when I say that, and it's built on sun, sand, sea, digital, and people, right? So labor is a huge component of that. Where does labor go from there today in order for us to drive towards that $100 billion economy?
We have to think creative. If we have the green economy, we have the orange economy. And we have to focus on that deal. We have to prepare our young people today through that aspect. One of the things that the COVID-19 pandemic taught us that we have to change the work environment. We cannot go to brick and mortar to work. Brick and mortar. Yeah. The work environment has to change. The green economy. How many jobs, opportunities in that billion-dollar economy are in our waters? How many? We have to take advantage of those. How many is in our culture? How many is in our culture? Our rights, our copyright rights as citizens in our country. And we have to be able to take a risk. We have to be able to take that leap of faith and with the help of a good Lord and the guidance of good Lord, prepare Bahamians to take full advantage of the billion-dollar economy. You're quite correct. There was a $1 billion. Just think about this deal. I spent every summer on the island of Auckland from probably age 6 to age 12, age 13. I used to go in the field and what we call cut bark with my grandparents.
Right.
And you should see the amount of work they had to do to cut bark, beat them bark, and we used to export that to New Province, eventually to Europe. And they make Campari out of those stuff. They make all kind of things out of those stuff. And very little is done in our country. So we have to find a mechanism with the shipping and the merchandising and the marketing to find a way to bring those back to the Bahamas. We have the generation of electricity, sustainable electricity. We depend so much on fossil fuel. There are all kind of ways, wave, sun, solar. We have to be innovative and create these things. A typical example, I have a son who's an avid fisherman. He lives here in the United States now, but he likes to come home and fish. And he was telling me how many various opportunities lie for us in the waters of the Bahamas. If we can find a market to export them to, a way to sustain it and to market it, our economy will explode. Just have the creativity and innovation to think out of the box.
Yes, very much so. Awesome stuff. Awesome stuff. Well, Farky, it's been real good speaking with you today. But before we take a break, because I know you had a full day. The people put you under the gun at the last minute.
Again,
and so forth. But that goes with the territory. That's just like getting knocked off the fence, and you come back and strike out the next 3 batters. So, what would you like to say to the audience out there?
Well, particularly to the Bahamian hay worker, opportunities are available. You just have to reach for it. Contact our office at the Department of Labor. We are trying to be innovative and creative. We have a 24-hour hotline for any questions you have at the Department of Labor. It's operated 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's 322 job. Any issues you need about work, the employment about work, reach out to us. We have a very aggressive media process. Our Twitter feed, our Instagram feed, our Facebook feed. We have a very interactive test. One of the things we do, and let me give you one of how creative we are. We had a major job fair on May the 7th, where we saw about 1,500 people come looking for employment. Over the past 2 weeks, we were able to confirm almost 700 new jobs as a result of that job fair. But one of the weaknesses we found, people came to the job fair in slippers and short pants because they didn't have anything to come in. So in another 2 weeks, the Department of Labor is going to have a clothing drive where we're going to be asking corporate Bahamas and citizens of Bahamas to provide second-hand clothing. So when you come for a job, we'll be able to properly dress you. That's the first weakness we found. Another weakness we found, many of the job seekers didn't come prepared for an interview. One of the employers told us that during the interview process, one of the questions our job seekers asked them was that, and it was so funny to me, this reality say, if I get hired, how much time I can take for me to call in sick before I am sick? You looking for a job and you asking the prospective employer, so we have to better prepare them for these job interviews. So we are now beginning to see how we can have free training courses to help prepare these young men and women to be properly interviewed. And so these are some of the things we have to make an adjustment to, because that's reality. They just isn't prepared to meet the job market. As we want to encourage, as I close, people seeking employment to reach out to the Department of Labor. That's what we do. We are very good at it, and we do it. One of our core values is service with excellence.
Right. Awesome. But we've been coasting a little bit for a couple of decades, so we need to just start pedaling faster and so forth as you leaders take the baton up and run with it and get it to go where we know we can go as a nation and to facilitate these things. It just takes a matter of reaching out and touching people and guiding them and helping them, and we'll be all right.
Leadership.
Yes. Honorable Loftus A. Roker says, leaders must lead.
Certainly.
That was his famous statement to me.
Yes, leaders must lead.
Before we go though, we have to just give a moment of silence, tip out to the His Excellency, the Dean Nui, who passed and left us alone. You know, he was the man who told me,
Yes.
and a number of others who sat at his feet, to say that, you know, when I was being questioned a lot, or I was asking a lot of questions, and he said, you know, to the other persons in the room that, you know, to ask the question, why, is a sign of high intelligence. So I didn't know if to take that as a positive or negative at the time, but he was a wise man and he helped a lot of people.
Certainly.
And so
Great
forth.
day, man.
You know, and it's so sad that he has passed on. So condolences to his family and so
Certainly.
forth. Shout out to him.
Amen.
Yes, amen.
Okay, there.
So, Brother Farquharson, thank you kindly. You're all out there in social media. You didn't ask any questions. I hope this was very informative. If you like what it is, subscribe, share the notes. Know that the videos are always up, so even if you miss a part of the show, you go back and watch the whole thing at your leisure and so forth, and be there. Madam Producer, thank you kindly.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome,
God bless.
Brother Farquharson. We'll
Okay.
talk later.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, there. All right. Hey, God bless.
Enjoyed the show? Then subscribe to us for more educational and inspirational content. Ring the bell so you never miss a show. Let's change the narrative 242